Wall Street is searching for AI winners and losers. For years, anything exposed to artificial intelligence was a hot trade on Wall Street, but today's investors are more selective, demanding stronger evidence that companies are poised to benefit from the AI boom. Wall Street is debating whether software companies can protect their market share from AI startups' new tools. Oh yeah, of course, because now it's beginning to be easier than ever to create software with all those new models. Investors have grown skeptical of big tech's plans to build data centers. Interesting. But at the same time, they've continued betting on the chip makers that power the AI boom. That's interesting how they segment the hardware side. Some software companies have emerged as potential AI losers, while hardware companies, think semiconductors, chip makers, continue to be AI winners. Popular exchange-traded funds highlights the divergence. The iShares Expanded Tech Software ETF is down 20% this year, while the VanEck Semiconductor ETF is up 13%. The rising tide surrounding AI was lifting a lot of boats. Steve Sosnick, chief strategist at Interactive Brokers, previously told CNN. Now it's forcing Wall Street to be much more selective and really decide who are the winners and losers. And that's going to require a lot more detailed analysis rather than just sort of riding the momentum train. Software skepticism. A sell-off swept through software stocks last week after Anthropic, one of the world's biggest AI startups, released new plugins for its Claude chatbot. So basically Anthropic released last week plugins for Microsoft PowerPoint and for Excel. So basically you can use Claude inside, to make the slides and to make the spreadsheets in Excel, basically, which is obvious, but now it kind of it starts to creep into every tool that lots of people are using. So of course people are like, oh, fuck. Investors are split on whether the sell-off was overdone, but software companies will need to evolve to coexist with improvements in AI. Angelo Zino, tech analysis at CFRA Research. Software companies that can leverage their own proprietary data and develop their own AI offering could compete with chatbots like Claude, Zino said. The companies that do have access to customer data and then can actually build actual AI agents upon that, those are going to be the ones that are going to be able to successfully evolve. I'm not so sure, because it goes from the kind of old principle that data is everything. And yes, data is everything, but at the same time, those AI companies have shown time and time again that their models can reasonably generalize. They can't generalize everywhere, right? Dan Ives, a tech bull and global head of technology research at Wedbush Securities, called the software sell-off overblown in a note on Monday. Ives said that many customers have reservations about data privacy and protection, which could be a hurdle for general AI chatbots becoming go-to services for business. Hardware enthusiasm. While there are doubts about the software industry, Wall Street has resounding confidence that hardware companies are AI winners. Semiconductor chips are vital for the AI boom. Chip makers like Nvidia have benefited from plans for enormous spending on data centers, regardless of whether investors approve of big tech's aspirations. Thank you. It's Soup and Pizza. Very nice. Memory chip makers have also seen extraordinary surges due to expectations for the AI build-out to boost demand for data storage. Big tech diverges. Choosing winners and losers is not easy, and it might not be apparent which companies are poised to outperform. The Magnificent Seven group of technology stocks that powered the market higher across the past years are diverging. Big tech hyperscalers like Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, and Alphabet or companies building out infrastructure for the AI boom are facing heightened scrutiny about their spending plans. Interesting. So the Wall Street guys are not on board totally about the big crazy, because like, for example, Meta has been planning for a crazy amount of AI data centers, right? Like Zuck is spending billions and billions for, new data centers that he doesn't have any products to put in, right? Yet. I guess he's planning on deploying that next year or this year or next year. But, it does appear to be a big bet in a way. So I guess now they are becoming skeptical about this bet. I think there's more risk now tied to some of these data center companies, these hyperscalers, because of the greater spending that they're taking on. To be sure, some investors are betting that the enormous build out will eventually translate into revenue and profits. right? But how much revenue and how much profits compared to the. I would argue we are still in the early innings of a long-tail investment cycle, but we have moved past the beta or get-me-in phase, where names are rewarded simply for announcing their spending on AI-related capex. The next phase of this cycle, where the market tries to pick winners and losers, is likely here to stay. Some investors are looking for winners in the AI boom by finding companies that might benefit from the side effects. Caterpillar, for example, has benefited from the data center build-out. The AI boom also centers around OpenAI and circular financing between some big tech, chip makers, and cloud companies has raised questions about the size and health of long-term funding for the industry's aspirations. It's interesting to see that even within the professional finance people, there are also people who are questioning the circular financing, right? Zino, a CFRA research, said companies with financial obligations related to OpenAI's success might see elevated scrutiny for investors. Wall Street is ultimately trying to discern the leaders and laggards of an investment theme that is becoming more nuanced as it ages and develops. Yeah, the winners and losers from a revolutionary technology are often not clear for years. Ultimately, exposure to the AI revolution can be grouped into one of three boxes: those who enable, those who adopt, and those who are disrupted. So there's the Databricks CEO that says that SaaS isn't dead, but AI will soon make it irrelevant. So what does he mean by this? So to be sure, he also wants to distance Databricks from the SaaS label, given that private market value it as an AI company. Databricks is still best known as a cloud data warehouse provider. Yeah, that's right. A data warehouse is where enterprises store massive amounts of data to analyze for business insights. Godzi called out in particular one AI product that's driving usage of its data warehouse, its LLM user interface named Genie. Genie is an example of how a SaaS business can replace its user interface with natural language. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the whole point of Databricks, is to ease the interface, is to make the customers' access to the DB easier. For instance, he uses it to ask why warehouse usage and revenue spike on particular days. The threat of AI to SaaS isn't, as one AI VC jokingly tweeted. What's the tweet? I love how everyone is saying SaaS is dead, like you're going to get the Fortune 500 to ditch Salesforce for a CRM vibe coded by a 13-year-old. Well, maybe not this, but guys, I am one of the biggest AI enthusiasts you'll find, and a huge proponent of getting more people into vibe coding. But it takes a long time for enterprises to rip and replace software. This is true. And in many cases, it doesn't make sense for them to do. This is also true. Big companies are just slow boats, big cruise ships, As it often happens with many innovations, the innovation usually never replaces the existing. It just grows on the side, like next to the existing, and it grows from there. And at some point, if the old stuff starts, becoming obsolete or too old or whatever, and then everybody switches to the new stuff, then maybe AI will have, in the end, replaced, but it would not actually have replaced. It would have, grow next to the existing. And at some point, people just keep using more the new stuff and less of the old stuff, right? That's usually how innovations play out. Like, right? It's like usually it's very rare that something that works is like switched in place with a totally different technology or something, So I guess it will probably be the same here. Let's read a little bit how we see it. Why would you move your system of record? It's hard to move it. That's right. The model makers aren't offering databases to store the data and become system of records anyway. Instead, they hope to replace the user interface with natural language for human use or API or other plugins for AI agents. So the threat to SaaS businesses is that people no longer spend their careers becoming masters of a particular product, Salesforce specialists or ServiceNow or SAP. Once the interface is just a language, the products become invisible like plumbing. Millions of people around the world who got trained on those user interfaces, and so that was the biggest moat that those businesses have. SaaS companies that embrace the new LLM interface could grow as Databricks is doing. But it also opens up possibilities for AI native competitors to offer alternatives that work better with the AI and agents. That's why Databricks created its lake-based database designed for agents. I mean, I guess what Databricks is doing is the good thing to do, right? It's like you are keeping your old, old model products that your current corporate customers are using. Of course, you're not going to destroy or change those, but next to it, you now launch, agent enabled products for the new customers that wants to jump on board and want to try that first. I mean, I guess that's how it will work. And of course, the companies who don't do that at some point, some years from now, they will eat the dirt, right? But yeah, I mean, as I heard from like a YC video I watched yesterday, even in the big companies, some of the engineers and managers are like, well, yeah, everybody now has AI to craft their own software, but so do we, right? We also have access to these AI tools to make new software ourselves, even if we are an older company, right? And we're not, and if we don't make the mistake of just be staying totally still, and if we actually try to embrace this thing, we will be able to leverage it as much, or at least to the same extent, with the added slowness of big corporation, but we will be able to leverage it the same way as young startups can leverage it, right? It's just that, of course, big corporations take time to do things, but at the same time they also have more clients. So when they do finally make a move, usually the amount of revenue generated from this move is way bigger, right? So, it's interesting. Like, it will just depend if people are active or not with the AI stuff.